Rome did not conquer the world with the sword alone. If you were to strip away the clatter of the legions, the gleam of the heavy iron armor, and the tactical brilliance of the great commanders, you would find something far more dangerous, far more efficient, and far more lethal hiding in the cold, stone shadows of the Forum. It was a machine that turned blood into gold and gold into an empire that refused to die. Rome's greatest weapon wasn't its military. It was a tax system so sophisticated, so predatory, and so relentless that it financed the greatest civilization in human history. To understand why Rome dominated for 1,000 years, you don't look at the battlefield. You follow the money, and you'll quickly find that the true history of Rome is written in dusty ledgers, not just in victory parades. The Roman machine required an impossible amount of fuel, maintaining a standing army of hundreds of thousands of men, paying for the massive citywide grain subsidies required to keep the volatile urban mob from rioting, and funding the endless, ego-driven construction of marble cities across 3 continents required more liquid wealth than the ancient world had ever seen. Rome was a glutton for resources, and its appetite only grew with every kilometer of territory it swallowed. When a proconsul marched into a new province, he wasn't just bringing the Pax Romana, he was bringing a massive, crushing invoice. Rome didn't just annex land, it annexed entire economies, hooking them into a singular, ravenous financial nervous system that drained the wealth of the Mediterranean to feed the heart of the city. The brilliance and the terror of the Roman system was its all-encompassing variety. They didn't just tax you once, they taxed you on every aspect of human existence. There was the tributum soli, a direct tax on the land you tilled, and the tributum capitis, a cruel head tax on every living soul, a literal price tag on human life. But that was just the baseline. Rome turned its entire geography into a giant, inescapable cash register. They imposed custom duties known as portoria on every road, bridge, and harbor. If you wanted to move a shipment of wine from Gaul to Italy, or a crate of precious pottery across the Mediterranean, Rome demanded a slice of your profit before you could even unload your goods. Then there were the state-controlled mines, the silver in Spain, the gold in Dacia, the iron in Britain, all of which were seized by the state to feed the insatiable furnaces of the Roman economy. But Rome had a massive problem. It didn't have a professional, salaried civil service like a modern government. It couldn't simply hire tens of thousands of tax auditors to fan out across the far reaches of Gaul, Egypt, or Syria to collect their share. So, they outsourced the entire dangerous job to the highest bidder. Enter the publicani. These were private contractors, wealthy businessmen, financiers, and high-stakes speculators who bought the right to collect taxes in a given province. Rome would auction off the right, the contractor would pay the state a massive lump sum up front, and then that contractor would head into the provinces to squeeze the population for every last coin they could extract. It was an invitation to legalize theft on a massive scale. If the state demanded 1,000,000 denarii in taxes, the contractor would demand 2,000,000 from the locals to ensure their own astronomical profit. The difference went straight into their pockets. The most successful among them became some of the wealthiest men in history, accumulating fortunes that rivaled kings, while the provinces they managed were often bled dry. This system didn't just fund the empire, it incentivized the brutal, systematic exploitation of the conquered. It was cold, it was calculating, and it was devastatingly effective. It turned the act of governance into a profit-seeking venture, creating a class of men who became more powerful than the governors they were supposed to report to. Yet, this money actually went somewhere. It didn't just disappear into the villas of the elite. It was the bedrock of the most advanced infrastructure the world had ever seen. The taxes paid for the famous Roman roads that connected the Atlantic to the Euphrates, allowing for the lightning-fast movement of legions and trade. They funded the massive aqueducts that turned arid deserts into lush urban centers, and the grand soaring ports that turned the Mediterranean into a Roman lake. When you walk through the ruins of a Roman theater, or look at the remains of an arched bridge that has stood for 2 millennia, you are looking at tax revenue turned into eternal stone. The sheer scale of what they built was only possible because they had mastered the art of extracting surplus value from millions of people across vast distances. But this system carried a heavy, hidden price. The rampant corruption of the publicani fueled countless provincial revolts and simmered with deep-seated resentment. It turned occupied people into subjects who were constantly living on the edge of bankruptcy and despair. Over centuries, the system became bloated, stagnant, and impossibly expensive to maintain. Eventually, the very mechanism that built the empire became the weight that dragged it down. As the empire expanded to its limits, the cost of defending those borders soared, leading to even more aggressive, desperate taxation. This crushed the middle class, stifled private trade, and eventually fractured the fragile social contract that held the empire together. When the cost of protection finally exceeded the actual value of the land, the empire began to lose its reason for existing. We look back at Rome and see marble statues and golden eagle standards, but we often miss the crushing weight of the bureaucracy that held it all together. It is a lesson that echoes across the centuries. Rome proved that an empire is not just a military power, it is, first and foremost, a financial one. If you control the flow of money, you control the fate of nations. When the taxes become completely disconnected from the reality and the prosperity of the people, the foundations begin to crack. The fall of Rome wasn't just about barbarian invasions or political decay. It was about the math no longer adding up. It serves as a stark, haunting reminder that even the most powerful civilizations in human history are only as stable as the systems they use to fund themselves. There is a final, darker irony here. As the empire faced its twilight, it resorted to debasing its own currency, shaving the silver content out of coins to create more money out of thin air. It was the ultimate act of desperation, a government cannibalizing its own economy to buy one more day of survival. It serves as a warning that we still grapple with today. When the machinery of state forgets that its power comes from the productivity of its citizens, it is only a matter of time before the lights go out. Rome gave us the blueprint for the modern world, but it also left us a warning written in the ruins of a broken economy. If you enjoyed diving into the mechanics of the ancient world, make sure to subscribe so we can keep exploring the hidden forces that built the world we live in today. And I have to ask, if you lived in ancient Rome, looking at how much went into the state's coffers, do you think the empire's tax system was a necessary engine for progress, or would you have been one of the people pushed to the breaking point by the collectors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.